Okay, so our next presenter is Celina de Leon, and she's gonna talk about how she integrates her knowledge in traditional psychology in the field of working in a ayahuasca center in Costa Rica. So, Celina, when you're ready.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good morning, everybody. First of all, I really want to thank ICEERS for this opportunity to be here and for us all to be together. And so I'm going to talk a little bit about the new frontier of ayahuasca healing centers in a more general sense and in my personal experience. So I think it's relevant to share just a little bit about my background. With the medicine, I've been working now with ayahuasca for 14 years. And in the last 6 years, I've been in a focused apprenticeship with Taita Juan Agre from the Alto Putumayo de Colombia. He was one of the speakers the other day. And in the last 2.5 years, I've been facilitating my own circles with the medicine. I also feel like it's relevant to share my background in yoga and in Ayurveda, which has been equally significant for me, which began 15 years ago. So I really feel like my expression with the medicine is a meld of these two modalities. So in a general sense, closer? Okay. In speaking about the emergence of ayahuasca healing centers, I feel with the expansion of ayahuasca, there are an increasing amount of centers that are dedicated to offering a therapeutic model that includes ayahuasca ceremonies in addition to other modalities. I just want to go through some of the promises and some of the challenges of the emergence of these centers. Of course, there's been many centers that have been around for a while, but I feel in the last 5 years, 10 years, there's really been a whole new wave of ayahuasca healing centers that have been coming up. So I feel the more broad question is, do these centers have the potential to serve as a new healthcare service, as more and more people are drawn to it? So first of all, I think it's important to consider the global climate in which we are in and why these centers are emerging in the first place, why there's such an emergence in ayahuasca in general. So of course we have our environmental predicament where our natural resources are getting destroyed far faster than our forests are being regenerated. We have a public health crisis where there are so many diseases, whether it's depression, addiction, eating disorders, which we could all argue have a root in spiritual disharmony. And then, of course, there's just the collective awakening of consciousness in general, where so many of us, like in this room, are coming to this point where we feel that there's more than the norms that have been imposed on us by society. And then, of course, the emergence of a multimodality approach in healthcare in general. More and more we find that people are going for various services at the same time. We're going for acupuncture, we're going for yoga to complement Western medicine and other therapies. So as has been talked about in many other previous presentations is this issue of ayahuasca is referred to as one medicine. But in reality, there are many different expressions. We have ayahuasca, we have yahe. In the tradition that I was trained in, it's called biashui. We have huasca, natem, so many different names for the same medicine. And within that, there are various indigenous traditions in the Northwest Amazon, vegetalismo, the ayahuasca churches, and now the emergence of neo-shamanic groups. So there's really there's so much happening, and there's so much to look at here. So within all of these different expressions that currently exist, I really feel that ayahuasca healing centers are offering yet another distinct way of working with the medicine. And within this context, each center has a very different therapeutic approach. Each center, each person that works with the medicine is being guided to work with it in their own way. And this is also important to look at, I think. And then comes my own path with this medicine. I'll describe it as from Colombia to Costa Rica. So my work with this medicine started in terms of training with Taita Juan in Colombia. There, as this is called the ayahuasca conference, but there the medicine is referred to as yahe, and it's also understood to be a masculine spirit. It's not understood to be feminine at all, actually. So my training with the medicine was really with this orientation. One of the characteristic aspects of the Colombian tradition in the Sibundoy Valley is the use of chacrupanga and the yahe vine. In this case, this is a common one that we use. It's referred to as tigre huasca. You can see the little specks that are there. And so really the tradition it's very focused on ritual. It's very focused on keeping a very tight space. One of the most characteristic things that happen in the Colombian ritual is the use of the limpia that happens at the end of the ceremony. It's a way to work through energies, to work on each person individually. So I'm just going to talk a little bit about my experiences in Sibundoy, as I mentioned, and I'm going to just talk about one case there. There were so many people that I've now worked with there, but I'm going to use this one case as an example of a specific way that we work. So this is a picture. We have Taita Juan in the corner. The bottom is a view outside of his house. A lot of people come there with the expectation of being in the forest, but really it's the highlands, and there's not much forest at all there, really. And then we have Mamita, who is showing the different plants. Characteristic of work in Colombia, in Sibundoy, is the use of various different plants. The borrachera, which is this flower in the middle, is used for many different things. We have just many different uses of the plants there. So in sharing this particular story, I'm going to share a story about a man named James. James he was heavily addicted to heroin for 7 years. He took his last shot of heroin in the Houston airport on the way to Sibundoy. He arrived there. He was in extreme withdrawal, and he was there with his girlfriend. He proceeded to have a very difficult time. Taita Juan saw this all happening, and the suggested treatment for him actually didn't involve ayahuasca at all. It involved a series of purgas, which is a type of therapy that involves taking a certain root and then it cleans out the body, and various other remedies. So with him, he proceeded to stay there for 6 months. After the 6 months, he was better. He had ayahuasca. After 3 weeks, he had it intermittently pretty much every week. This was somebody that, while in the United States, he was arrested multiple times. He was in and out of methadone clinics. He conceived a child with a woman, and they had the child taken away by Child Protective Services. I'm just sharing these things to demonstrate how dramatic his situation really was. So really his treatment is, as much as I feel it was about taking him out of his environment, it was also about being exposed not only to yahe, but also to the various different therapies there. While I was with him, we did some yoga and meditation, but not too much. So now it's been 2 years later, and he's totally clean. He's having a great life in Colombia, and he's doing really well. So that's just one example of how a treatment happens in Colombia. And now we're going to move to Costa Rica. This is my retreat center in Costa Rica. It's called Posada Natura. Here we have a totally different way of working with the medicine. Of course, there's the ritual involved, the yahe. It's very similar to the Colombian tradition, but we also use many other modalities. A lot of what we work with is nature immersion. We are fortunate to have a rainforest reserve that's just a little bit down the road from our retreat center. We also work a lot with the power of ritual on the land. So the picture in the middle here of the tree, this is a particular place on the land where we encourage people to make land offerings and to connect with the earth. We also work with Ayurveda treatments. The picture in the corner is a woman receiving Shirodhara and yoga, and we work a lot with the energy of water. We're next to a river. In our rainforest reserve, we have the springs for the entire corridor, and it's just amazing to see the power of water. So moving quickly here, the case that I want to share here is a woman who came to work with me. She had a very complicated condition called RSD, reflex sympathetic dystrophy. This is a condition where the nervous system basically starts misfiring extreme pain messages to the brain. In her case, she was experiencing alternating sensations of feeling like her foot was on fire and like somebody was slamming it with a sledgehammer. She went to many different doctors. They couldn't diagnose anything. They really didn't know what was happening, so they gave her the RSD diagnosis, and they put her on opiates. So she was in the condition where she was taking opiates multiple times a day just to be baseline without any pain. So she came to work with me, and to be honest, I was a little skeptical of what might happen to her. I thought either she was going to be purging the entire time or the medicine wasn't going to have any effect. In the first ceremony, after drinking 2 cups of medicine, she still wasn't feeling anything. Then I did a water prayer, served her the water, and sometime later, she started crying. And I went to go check on her, and she lifted up her head, and she said, "Celina, I'm crying because my toes are moving for the first time since the accident. And they're moving like toes don't move. They're making embryonic movements." I was so astonished by this. I actually took the flashlight to look, and I was looking at her toes, and sure enough, her toes were doing these wild movements like toes don't move. And the next morning, she was dancing around, and it was this really beautiful experience to see her in this whole process. And what was more striking to me is when I talked to her afterwards, after I worked with her several times, what she shared with me was, as much as the ayahuasca experience was very powerful for her, it was the combined experience of being at the retreat center, of being in the different therapies, of being in nature, of being immersed in a waterfall. It was the whole experience. So these are some of course, like these are 2 very dramatic stories that demonstrate the amazing promises of ayahuasca, the amazing promises of healing centers, and at the same time, I feel like we really also need to be realistic about the challenges. These are the main challenges that I think that we need to focus on. Of course, the first being responsible facilitation and true integration of the ceremonial experience. I feel like this is really one of the core issues of our time. And then the aspect of effective research so that more people can really be aware of the amazing benefits of this medicine and that it can reach a broader audience. And then the more specific issues of revolving legality, public awareness, and then of course the sustainability of the medicine itself. So with that, this slide got a little pushed. I just want to really briefly talk about a project that I'm involved in. It's called the Ayahuasca Therapeutic Outcome Project, ATOP. If any of you were at Brian Rush's presentation yesterday, you already heard about it. For me, it's just a complete honor to be involved in this project and just to know that this exists. I feel like this is really such a cutting edge work and really on the forefront of what the ayahuasca movement needs in general. So this is a multi-center longitudinal study to examine the benefits of ayahuasca for addiction. Our current study sites are in Peru, Brazil, Mexico, with potential sites in Costa Rica and Argentina. And I feel like more than anything, this is a super novel project because of the very groundbreaking research design that involves really looking at the context of this medicine. So when you look at the case study of Colombia and Costa Rica, these are such different ways of working with the medicine, and we've heard a lot of different ways that people work with the medicine throughout this weekend, and this is really a way to look at all of these factors. This is the type of research model that we're going to be working with. It's called the realist evaluation model, and I think more than anything, as it's bolded, it's really looking at the aspect of context and how that creates the therapeutic experience, and how we provide a place for both qualitative and quantitative measures, and also indigenous engagement. So finally, to wrap up, we asked the question, do these centers have the potential to serve as a new healthcare service and that are increasingly accessible? I think absolutely yes, as well as centers. These centers serve as centers for environmental regeneration, prevention, and cultivation of our optimum potential. The future is bright. Thank you.